For decades, the NBA has been dominated by superstars. The biggest names in basketball like LeBron, Magic, Shaq, all changing the game in their own ways while playing different positions. But what if you had to pick just one as the greatest of all time? Would it be the guards, the ones who controlled the game, dictated the pace, and hit some of the biggest shots in history? Or is it the forwards, the most versatile athletes dominating inside and out across every era? Or maybe you're a centers guy, you back the Giants who literally defined basketball for its first 50 years. Every NBA fan has argued about this, but nobody has ever actually proven it. Until today, because I went through every MVP race, every finals performance, and every championship run to settle this once and for all. And by the time we're done, you might be shocked at the answer. Now, before we dive into the numbers, let's take a step back because the NBA wasn't always built the way it is today. The rules, the strategies, and even the way the game was played changed dramatically over time. In the early days of the NBA, basketball was a big man's game. There was no three-point line, the pace was slower, and defenses were built to protect the paint. Teams weren't just building around big men, they needed an elite one just to compete for championships, and this is why centers dominated for decades. Bill Russell won 11 of them, anchoring one of the best defenses of all time. Wilt Chamberlain once dropped 100 points in a game and averaged 50 for a season. And then there was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who became the NBA's all-time leading scorer with his unstoppable skyhook. Even as the game evolved in the 70s and 80s, big men still ran the show. Moses Malone controlled the paint with his relentless rebounding and inside scoring. Hakeem Olajuwon became the most skilled post player of all time, and even though the Lakers were playing a faster-paced style, it was still Kareem carrying the team. Centers were the blueprint for championships, that is, until the NBA changed forever. By the 1990s, the league was undergoing a revolution. The three-point line had been around for a while, but most teams weren't fully utilizing it, and then one player completely rewrote the rules of basketball. And of course, I'm talking about Michael Jordan. Now, MJ wasn't just a guard, he shattered the big man era for good. He won 6 championships in 8 years, collected 5 MVPs, and led the league in scoring 10 times. I could go on forever. Because he wasn't just winning, he was changing how teams were built. Suddenly, size wasn't everything, as the most dominant players weren't just the tall guys, they were the most athletic, the most skilled, and the most versatile. The blueprint for a championship started to shift, and teams were no longer looking for the next Kareem, they were looking for that next Jordan. Now, by the mid-2000s, forwards had completely taken over. Tim Duncan became the most complete two-way big man in the league, Dirk Nowitzki proved that a power forward could be the #1 option on a championship team, and Kevin Garnett changed what it meant to be a superstar, controlling the game on both ends of the floor. The shift was complete as the NBA wasn't just about height, it was about versatility. Which brings us to today. Because if you look at the last 15 years, the most dominant players in the NBA have all been forwards. LeBron James is arguably the most complete player of all time. Kevin Durant is a 7-foot sniper who moves like a guard. And Giannis Antetokounmpo is a 7-foot powerhouse who can run the break, play elite defense, and finish at the rim better than anybody. Like it or not, forwards are running the league except, of course, for this one guy. Now, Curry is the exception, not the rule. He completely redefined what a guard could be with his ability to stretch the floor, shoot from anywhere, and bend defenses to his will. It's something we've never seen before. He's proof that guards can still dominate in today's game, but if you take Curry out of the equation, the NBA is still built around forwards. Teams don't just rely on a big man anymore, and guards can't just pass and shoot. The players that define this era, the ones winning the MVPs and dominating every aspect of the game, they're all forwards. And that's exactly what makes this debate so interesting. Centers ruled the past, guards had their golden age, and now forwards are in complete control. So after decades of change, we are left with one question. Which position is truly the greatest of all time? Now, if we're going to settle this once and for all, we need to define what the greatest actually means. Because having one legendary player at a position isn't enough. It can't just be one name, it's about which position dominated the NBA history as a whole. So I broke it down into 4 key categories. First is MVPs, which position produced the most dominant players in their prime. Then we look at finals MVPs because regular season dominance is one thing, but who showed up when it mattered most. Next is the championships because at the end of the day, winning is what truly matters. And finally, we need GOAT representation, how many of the consensus greatest players in history came from each position. Because if one of these consistently wins in every category, the debate is over. So let's start at the top. When you think of an MVP, you think of absolute dominance. Winning this award means you were undeniably the best player in the league for an entire season, so which position has the most? For decades, centers ran the MVP race with Kareem, Wilt, and Shaq collecting trophy after trophy, but then the NBA evolved. The modern game started favoring versatility, perimeter play, and all-around impact, and that's when the forwards took over. Guys like LeBron, Bird, and Giannis became the faces of the league, racking up MVPs and leading teams to deep playoff runs. And while guards still had their fair share of winners with Jordan, Magic, and Curry, it was always a battle between the bigs and the forwards. So, can we declare a winner here? I don't think so, because they're just one piece of the puzzle. As dominating the regular season is great, what happens when the lights shine the brightest? When everything is on the line, when a championship is at stake, who rises above the rest? And just like that, we have a lead. Forwards have dominated finals MVPs with 27 players taking home the award. That means more than any other position, forwards have carried their teams on the biggest stage. Now, centers aren't far behind, as in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they were still the driving force behind championship teams. And when it comes to the guards, well, they're struggling in this category. As outside of Jordan and Kobe, very few guards have ever won a finals MVP as the best player on the title-winning team. And at this point, we can already see a pattern. MVPs were close, but finals MVPs give the edge to the forwards. But let's go even deeper, let's talk about the ultimate measure of success. Because at the end of the day, winning is everything. The greatest players aren't just remembered for their individual performances, they're remembered for their championship rings. For the first 50 years of the NBA, centers dominated the league and the championship totals reflect that. Bill Russell's 11 rings are untouchable. Kareem, Shaq, and Wilt, they all anchored dynasties built around size and dominance. But in the modern era, that's changed completely. Forwards have taken over with LeBron, Durant, and Duncan leading their teams to titles year after year. And the days of a team needing a dominant big man are far gone. The game has evolved, and now championship teams are built around versatility, two-way play, and all-around dominance, which is exactly what today's forwards bring to the table. And for all the guards fans out there, let's be honest, they have won titles, but compared to centers and forwards, they're just not carrying their teams as often. And that leads us to the final category, the one that might settle this thing for all. Because if we're trying to decide the greatest position ever, we have to look at the greatest players ever. For the guards, you have guys like Jordan, Magic, and Curry. For the forwards, it's LeBron, Bird, and Durant. And for the centers, you've got Wilt, Shaq, and Kareem. All three positions have their legends, but ask yourself who really runs this conversation. When people debate the GOAT, it almost always comes down to Jordan versus LeBron, and that tells you everything. Guards might have the most iconic individual player in Jordan, with centers having the most dominant forces, but the forwards have the deepest lineups of all-time greats. Guys like LeBron, Bird, Durant, Duncan, and Giannis, the list just never ends. Each one of these guys didn't just dominate their era, they changed the game itself. And after breaking down every category, the numbers don't lie, we have our final answer. When it comes to MVPs, centers and forwards are close, but forwards have dominated modern basketball. When it comes to finals MVPs, forwards clearly take the lead, proving that when the stakes are the highest, they're the ones that rise to the occasion. When it comes to championships, centers ruled the early days, but forwards had taken over in the modern era. And when it comes to the GOAT debate, it's overwhelmingly the forwards. And at this point, the answer is undeniable. The greatest position in NBA history is none other than the forwards. For decades, the game was about size, then it became about skill, and now it's about all of it. Forwards have proven to be the most complete players in basketball, the scorers, the facilitators, the defenders, the leaders. They dominate in every era, under every rule set, against every type of competition. Now, the GOAT debate may never be settled, but the position debate, well, that one's over. The forwards run basketball, and they're not slowing down anytime soon.